the other night we were having a kickboxing class, and I had pulled out my notebook full of a bunch of different combos, and I was all proud of myself for having triple digit combos because, it gives you a lot of variety to work with. And instead of having, just to like pull something out of my butt on the day, I can just go and reference my list, which, it's a nice tool to have for running class. However, when I did it, I was thinking, I bet you there's a mathematical formula to figure out all the different permutations of combos, and certainly there is. And if you guys didn't realize this, right, the kickboxing that we teach is a hybrid of Savate and Kempo and Wing Chun and the MMA striking that I had to, learn and work on when I was, competing at the time. So we have this very eclectic hybrid system that honestly ends up just looking a lot like, American kickboxing and Sandan most of the time. And of course, I prefer to apply it towards the whole game of MMA, but we can, strip it down when needed. But I thought I'd go ahead and do the math. And the math is actually kind of simple, really. So the cool thing is, because within your moveset you can repeat moves, so you're not taking something out, which means you don't have to do any kind of factorial equation, which is really nice because I don't like doing fancy math. This is more like having multiple dice to roll, and so you end up just with doing exponential growth, right? So if you want to do a 2-hit combo, it's you take your moveset and you multiply your moveset by that same number, right? Raise it to a power of 2. 3-hit combo, raise it to a power of 3. So the question is, how do we even start with this? So we have to come up with some basic guidelines. And the basic guidelines, I figured, we'll keep it simple. We will just take the basic kind of standing techniques. A couple of them are grouped together for the sake of simpler math. You can get really granular with this if you want, and if you study a very specific system, you can take the specific curriculum moves and do the same thing. And because for the most part, in a more open kickboxing setting, it really depends on the rules you're working with. But in an open kickboxing setting, you have punches and kicks, and then quite often elbows and knees. And depending on the competition, there may be certain things allowed, not allowed, certain limitations, and you should always train within whatever your expected scenario is. But we're keeping it kind of open and general for now. Let's say you're just doing cardio kickboxing or shadow boxing for the sake of just running your moves, right? So I decided on some simple techniques and a couple of simple parameters. So the first parameter is only counting basic techniques, meaning basically techniques that you just do from your stance, not even specifying stance, not even specifying lead. The other thing is we're not going to be counting movement, targets, or defense. So we're not counting any of that. You absolutely can and should eventually do that, but for the sake of simple math, we're kind of discounting that. You could easily pick high, medium, low targets or specific body targets. You could very specifically say, this is a stepping move, this is a shuffling move, this is a jumping move, this is a turning move, right? And so you could add layers of complexity there. And then, you can throw in defenses, and I didn't write it down, but, you could throw in feints. And so you could be like, fake this to throw that, that'd be fine. Or, you can mix defenses in. And I just didn't want to overcomplicate it for the sake of this video. And then we're counting each technique twice because you have 2 hands, 2 feet, right? 2 legs, 2 arms. And so we're not even, while we're not specifying lead, you could be throwing a left or a right. So we're not going to use term like jab and cross because that's indicative of the lead. We're just going to say left and right. So for our punches, we have straight, hook, uppercut, shovel hook, swings and overhand. In Savate, we tend to use a swing punch where we roll the fist over and snap. It's on a similar line as the overhand, and more people tend to throw just a stable overhand. And then, of course, some overhands end up looking like swings. So we're just going to categorize that in as kind of the same thing for our purposes. However, you could absolutely run those in as separate things. Same thing with the shovel, right? A lot of people will kind of do like this sidearm haymaker, and that's fine. There's a lot of kung fu styles. If you look at long fist kung fu styles, they have these kind of sidearm upward swinging punches that are kind of like a super long fist version of a shovel hook. And you could get really granular and say we're doing this and that, or you could just say we're covering this one line. And because we're not dealing with range, I just kind of am grouping them together. If you're dealing with range and movement, then you might want to be very specific. And then I threw in back fist and hammer fist together, because this kind of chopping motion, whether you're hitting with the back fist or the hammer fist, again, is going to occupy more or less the same line. Not every move set or not every competition set is going to allow it, but I figured I'd go ahead and throw that in there anyway. Then for kicks, we have our front kick, and you can see I put snap on it. Usually when people say front kick, they understand, like they mean front snap kick. Savate, we call it a direct kick, but just a regular old front snap kick. Round kick, and again, this could be Muay Thai style, that chopping hard, round kick, or it could be from a distance, Savate style, karate style, taekwondo style, whatever. Do what you train. We're going to just call it a round kick. You know what a round kick is. Then we're going to have the front thrust kick. This is Sparta kick. The kick down a door kick is super useful kick. You got to know it. Side kick, right? Just, what a side kick is. Back kick. Savate, technically speaking, we don't really do back kicks, because even if our back is turned, we're going to turn it into a side kick. So, in my opinion, because back kicks are so limited, I don't think they're super worthwhile to spend a lot of time training on. However, they show up in a lot of systems. We certainly did them a lot in Kempo. And so you should know how to do it. So I included them in there. And then you also have your wheel kick or hook kick. So most people don't do a standing wheel kick. Most people only do wheel kicks turning. But this would be called a reverse lateral in Savate. And then, of course, reverse lateral groupe, the hook kick. And that's really a range thing. The wheel kick, the standing wheel kick, is pretty much a straight-legged kick, whereas the hook kick involves closing the knee. And then we're going to throw in the reverse kick, reverse frontal in Savate, or reverse crescent kick. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in the inverted kick. The inverted kick is something you see in some Kung Fu styles, and of course JKD guys use it, but it really occupies the same line as the reverse kick. It's a little different, but it's samey enough for our calculations here. And then the standard crescent kick, outside to inside crescent kick. And I'm combining that with the axe kick because, quite honestly, you don't see a lot of crescent kicks in competition. But a lot of people will use that line to throw an axe kick. Andy Hug was really good at that. But I always pronounce his name wrong. It's not Hug, Hug, right? Anyway, so those kind of occupy the same line. The finish is different, of course, but as far as entries and all that. And then, so like I said, some people won't practice axe kicks because they have flexibility limitations, and they'll just practice that crescent kick. And then other people won't practice the crescent kick because they don't think it's functional, but they'll practice the axe kick. So, pick and choose, whatever. So, right, so we got 6 punches, we got 8 kicks. Good start. Now, elbows. Had to be a little judicious here. So you have your kind of standard horizontal elbows, diagonal up, diagonal down, right? Those are kind of the standard ones that everybody's got. And then is a big category. I throw in back elbow because oftentimes people will do like spinning elbows. You'd be spinning upwards, spinning back. No, the chambering movement is not a back elbow. Pretty much nobody believes that anymore. But I go ahead and throw the back elbow in there just kind of as an arbitrary category because it doesn't show up that much. Spike elbow, the downward spike elbow. Not legal in a lot, but legal in some. And then spear elbow, where the elbow is more or less stationary and you are using your momentum and your body weight. And that can be done to the side, that can be done to the front. Basic stuff. And then, of course, the uppercut elbow, which is super, super useful and is a slightly different line, and I would say a different enough line than the diagonal up elbow to include as a separate move. which gives us 7 elbows. Then we have our knees. Now, knees are going to be the most limited because your hip mobility can only do so much. Obviously, elbows and knees are range dependent, but we're throwing them in anyway. So with knees, a frontal knee, or kind of like a spearing knee, and an upward knee, just because of the angle of the leg and all that, they're going to be mostly the same move. So I'm really not worried about separating them for now. And then a round knee. If you can throw a round kick, you can throw a round knee. Super useful technique. Really, really good to have in your toolbox. And then, of course, crescent knees are great in a clinch. You're probably not going to use them outside of a clinch, but you can absolutely throw crescent knees in there. Same line as your standard crescent kick, from outside to inside. Start bumping into the thighs and the ribs and whatnot. Decent technique. And then you can also do from the reverse angle. I like to use the term reverse as separate from crescent, even though it's a reverse crescent, whatever, but it's the same idea. It's just crescenting from inside to outside. Oftentimes you see that movement actually for knee shielding, shin blocking, but it's absolutely usable as a knee strike as well. Though the scenarios where that becomes useful are a slight bit more limited, but it can be done. So that gives us 4 knees, which gives us a total of 25 moves that, remember, we have to double because we have left and right, which gives us 50 moves. All right, so 50 basic kickboxing moves. Now, okay, let's just be fair. If you were doing, say, savate, where you can only hit with the glove and the shoe, then you're going to go ahead and cut out the elbows and the knees, right? And that gives you 28, and that'll give us our green numbers down here. We'll come back to those. 50 moves. That means if you're doing a single move, you have 50 options. So I want you to put in your head, I have a 50-sided die. Yeah, break out your Dungeons and Dragons kit. If you don't know what a 50-sided die is, go on Amazon. You can get one for about $4. Break out your 50-sided die. And you have a 1 in 50 chance for any one of those moves, right? If you want to do a 2-hit combo, you have a 1 in 50 chance for that. And then for each one of those 50, you have a 1 in 50 chance. So it's 50 times 50, exponent raised to a power of 2. And you get 2,500 unique combos. Now that is including doubling the move, right? Because we're not taking that move off the table once we've used it, because things like double jabs, like double jab entries are really useful. Now, as we go down the list, you're going to realize there are some things that you're just not going to double. That's fine. We're just doing math here. All right. Now, you have 50 times 50 giving you 2,500. Now you can say 50 raised to the power of 3, 50 times 50 times 50. Right? Or you just take that 2,500 and multiply it by 50 again, because you're just adding another probability of 1 in 50 on the end of each of those 2,500 moves, and you get 125,000 unique combos. Just for a 3-hit combo, just with this limited set of moves, you have 125,000 options, which is massive, absolutely massive. If we go down to 4-hit combos, right? Multiplied by 50 again. 50 raised to the power of 4, 50 times 50 times 50 times 50. 6 million. So when we say there are millions of moves or millions of ways to do things, this is kind of what we're talking about. It's not that there are a million moves, right? There's honestly not that many moves. And even if we added finger strikes and open hand strikes, separated out forearm strikes, went into the variations, because every one of these moves has 3 or 4 variations. Even if we did that, you probably still wouldn't get further than low hundreds. But the fact is that as soon as you start stacking things and you start adding things with defenses and controls, you start racking up into the thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions. And so at the 4 hits, 6,250,000 unique combos. And again, if we go to a 5-hit combo, we're not going any further than that. Honestly, I don't see much point in going bigger than 5-hit combos anyway, just because we have to be reasonable to how many moves we're going to be able to pull off in succession. If you think that you got 15 hit combos in you, go for it. When I was learning, Savate and American style Kempo and that era of my life, we were doing up to 15 hit combos. It's cool just for the sake of juggling and for the sake of conditioning, but I don't think I've ever pulled off 15 moves in a row in sparring. So, all right. So at a 5-hit combo, you've got 312,500,000 unique combos. That is almost enough to have one unique combo for each person in the United States. It's not quite enough, but almost. That's a lot. That is a ton. That is an absolute ton of unique combinations that you could put together. And yes, that includes doing something done like at that level of doing 5 back kicks in a row. Are you really going to do that? No, you're not going to do that, right? Doing 3 reverse kicks in a row, like Van Damme did. Was it a Bloodsport or was it Kickboxer? I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen both of those. But there's a move where there's a scene in the movie. I think it's Bloodsport, and he does like 3 reverse kicks, 3 reverse crescent kicks in a row, just because, right? You're probably not going to do that. Right. So there's plenty of combos in there that you're just going to go, I don't know about that. I'm probably not going to do that. And that is fine. The purpose of this isn't to tell you need to go out and do 312 million combos. Really, the purpose of this is that you can take this information and start stacking stuff. And go and get yourself, 5 50-sided dice and randomize it. But that's not what I'm telling you to do. Right, or get 5 decks of cards, and assign each one a kick, and or a punch or a knee or an elbow, whatever. Right, and you got your 4 suits. You could do that, and just kind of pull combos at random. That's fine too. But really, what I'm getting at is there is so much variety to be had. Don't just get stuck in your 1, 2, 3, 4s. Get out of your head. Get out of your box. Start practicing things that you might not normally practice, and just try to pull something out. And even if it's just something that ends up being like agility, dexterity, and juggling, for lack of a better term, it's still something that can be useful for your personal development. I love doing the kickboxing classes, because even though kickboxing is still serious, because we're actually applying it to a bigger overall thing, though I'm happy to help somebody compete, train up to their first fight, whatever. But honestly, like that's the Street Fighter class for us. That's the Power Rangers class for us. That's a class where we can kind of, just take the nerd hat off, take the scholarly hat off, just take some basics, go at it, have some fun. There's some of my favorite classes, for the simple fact that we just get to kind of have some fun and be dynamic and active, and not think too much about tiny little minutia and tradition and stories. It's just basic training, and it's really, really good stuff. This is stuff that fits really, really well in a teenager's training program, where maybe they're not ready for some of the deeper stuff inside of your kung fu or karate curriculum or whatever. But just like simple functionality, get them some combos, fix some punches and kicks, get some good, movement and defense, and get them sparring. And like super useful, really fast moving stuff. I don't like to quote Bruce Lee, but I mean, there's a reason that when Bruce Lee said, somebody who had 6 months of boxing training could beat somebody who had been doing kung fu for years. In a very real sense, that's true, because the method of training for kung fu, even when kung fu was trained for fighting, the method of training is a slower training method, and I would argue that there was room to improve. There was some really good stuff in the traditional methods, but there's also some stuff that can definitely be streamlined and updated. That's neither here nor there. The point is, this is the stuff that gets dynamic, gets you moving fast. And if you're a school owner, this is the stuff that gets people in the door and keeps people in, because they're having fun, and it's dynamic, and it's high energy, and it's still useful. It's not watering anything down. It's just taking the basics and putting them into a dynamic sphere and making them work on their fight IQ instead of working on just technique. All right, I think that's all I've got for you. Oh, there was one more thing, right? Like I said, if you wanted to do just the punches and kicks, right, a la Savat, right, your numbers, right, for 2-hit combos, 784, for 3-hit combos, 21,952. For 4-hit, you've got 614,656, and at the bottom, 5 hits, you have 17,210,368. So even if you're just doing punches and kicks and nothing else, you can still get into the millions, and certainly well into the thousands and even hundreds of thousands. So even with just punches and kicks, you've got so much variety at your fingertips. And that's not including all of the variations of techniques, adding in defense, adding in movement, right? You roll up a combo, that's not stand there and do the combo. That's figure out the movement that leads from one movement to the next, right? Because every move leads to the next. We talk about this all the time. So, right, you're going to be adding movement in, but you could add specific movement in. There is so much that you can do with this, even with a stripped down curriculum. Even if you were just doing punches, a la boxing, right? And even move this out and you just got your 5 punches. Even if you were doing that, you're still going to get pretty high up there just in your ability to throw those punches. You can do the math out for all of this. All it is think of it like rolling a die. I got my number of moves and I roll it. And if I want to do a 2-hit combo, I roll it twice. You're right? And you just multiply the whole number by the whole number for the number of hits that you want to put in your combo, right? So 2-hit combo, 2 dice. So the total number times the total number, right? Raised to the power of 2, not times 2. It's not just doubling. It is raised to the power of 2. Multiply it by itself, right? 50 times 50, etc. All right. Now for sure, that's all I've got for you. Just a nerdy, fun video, but hopefully to inspire you to actually, go hit the bag or do some pad work or shadow box. Have some fun with it, all right? And I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Hey, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, do all the other social media stuff. You can check out our other socials as well as take a look at some of the merchandise that we have for offer in the links below. And if you happen to be in the Phoenix metro area, stop in, come in for a class, come in just to say hi. We'd love to meet you. Until next time, good journey.